On the output management side, let's talk about that really quickly here. So we have a couple different ways to bring that into the equation. So on the output management side, or what we're now terming output automation, there are two different services we can run. There's an API print service, which is built, primarily was built for Epic integration, but it can also work with any application that can send a print job as a post request. And we have our API published for how to interact with that. It requires some basic authorization for the Epic side of the house. This is built within the E0A record of how we create that. And then also a certificate that we upload into the system to trust the communication. On the Epic side as well, we also have a status update that involves creating an EMP username and password so that we can send update status back to Epic so that you're not seeing in Kuiper, you're not just seeing, sent to third party, you're actually seeing completed workflows in there, even though you're using an external system. So all that integration is built in here. The one thing that is different in terms of how we do backend printing versus how Epic will do it, or even how some of our competitors will do it, we rely on a driverless configuration for backend print jobs. So you'll notice before I mentioned there's a driver associated with each print queue. This is for front-end printing, where we're actually going to install that driver on a Windows device or inside of a master image for virtualization. We're going to use that driver and its capabilities to print to that particular printer. For back-end jobs, particularly around Epic or any EMR or back-end system for that matter, we're going to receive print instructions from the application via an XML file along with the print ready job in a PDF or XPS or RAW format. When we do that, there's things that you can do within our system. So the default setup here is just pass through, meaning I'm not going to do anything in changing the print language. I'm just going to take whatever Epic or the backend application gives me, and I'm going to send it to the printer in that format. For a lot of printers, particularly on the EMR side, that doesn't effectively work, and we need to transform the print language to make sure that comes out correctly. Zebra printers and label printers are probably the biggest use case for that. So each print queue allows you to go in here and select, am I going to accept the default with pass-through? Am I going to change it to PostScript, XPS, PDF, PCL6, PCL5, ZPL, or ESC, which is a point-of-sale system language. So this allows us to communicate with the printer over that particular language and adjust the formatting for that job to be sent to that specific printer using that language and using the instructions we get from the backend application. So again, we don't have to set up print queues for the backend system depending on the application. And we can use this driverless format to process those backend print jobs with the advantage of just managing that print queue once and presenting it to the backend application and for front-end client use. The last thing I'll show really quick here with regards to the backend integration, I mentioned rules and routing of what we can do in adding policy for backend print jobs. We have a couple different triggers in here right now, and this will be built out more and more as we continue to evolve this solution. But right now, we're basically focused on, did a job fail? Was it received? Was it completed? Was it held? And then creating different actions based on that. So let's say we received an output job. We can just call this something like redirection. We can identify the print job through a bunch of different conditions. We can focus on the printer it was sent to, the print job title. I had one customer who wanted to print specifically after visit patient summaries to a specific printer because it was their high capacity color printer and they wanted their AVS documents to come out in color. So we could key on the title of that document and then redirect it. We could look at things like, this is user not found is something that comes from the backend system where you get a system generated user. And for purposes of doing things like secure release on the backend, we need to identify a particular user. So we can inject a different username so that someone can release it with a badge credential, for instance. Or something like number of pages. If people are printing documents out, like 1,000-page document for whatever reason, you can identify those things and then say, if this is more than 50 pages, I actually want to implement a rule that says do not print. So I use those conditions and then select my action based on that. And it can be redirection of the print job assigned to a user like we were talking about before, or send it to a pool of printers for things like batch printing. And this will be built out more and more as we continue to evolve this solution. But the idea is to create policy for those backend jobs to handle them appropriately and make sure that we're in protecting the security of all PHI that is sent through.